Welcome to our June 11th board meeting. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Roll call. We have 4 of us present. Carrie will be here shortly. Do we have a motion to adopt the board agenda for today?
Motion to adopt the agenda?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Marla, was that an aye over there?
Oh, I said aye, sorry.
Okay, I didn't hear it.
Aye.
All right.
Sorry.
Oops. So, sorry. The agenda is adopted. It's hard with barbecue sauce everywhere, but we'll,
Oh, is there one for each of us?
one for each of you. Public, time for comments from the public on closed session, and there are none, so we'll adjourn to closed session. All right. We're about ready to get started. So, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our June 11th board meeting of the Roseville Joint Union High School District. Let's first start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone can please rise and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, just prior to this meeting, the board met in closed session. However, there's no reportable action from closed session. Let's see here. My computer's a little slow today. Meeting protocols. Everyone will have an opportunity to speak if you'd wish on any individual agenda item, or if there's an issue you want to speak about that's not on the agenda, we have an opportunity for public comments. If you do want to speak, please take the time to fill out one of these forms so that we can remember to call you. The board encourages public participation during the meeting and requests civility and the use of courteous language. The board does not condone the use of profanity, vulgar language, gestures, or any other inappropriate behavior, including personal attacks or threats directed towards any meeting participant or district employee. There's an opportunity, as I mentioned, to speak on each item. If we have 9 or less people who'd like to speak, you'll have 3 minutes available for you to speak. If we have 10 or more, that time will be reduced to 1.5 minutes. If you have a complaint about a specific employee or employees of the district, those should be made to that employee's immediate supervisor or the school site principal as outlined in our board policy and administrative regulations. This meeting, as always, is being audio and video recorded, streamed on the internet, and will be archived as well. Oops, my computer just tried to restart. Hopefully that doesn't happen here. Our first item are special recognition and presentations, and I believe Mel is going to start us off with that.
Good evening. I'll just wait for my presentation to pull up. I know how much you guys liked having the students last time, but unfortunately they're all at summer. So you get Mel for the final presentation of the year for the Athletics and Arts recognition for spring 2024. So let's begin. We will start with Antelope High School. And Antelope's athletics programs had a fantastic spring season across multiple sports. The boys volleyball placed second in the CVC and made it to the CIF SJS playoff quarterfinals. In swimming, 12 athletes qualified for the sections, demonstrating the depth and talent of their team. And in track and field, school records were broken in the high jump and in the girls 4x100 relay, with 16 athletes qualifying for sections. Antelope was the D2 section champs in the boys 4x400 and high jump. And in the boys tennis, the team made it to the playoffs for the first time in school history and reached the CIF SJF playoff semifinals. Moving on to Granite Bay. At Granite Bay, 5 teams earned academic team champion awards from CIF, demonstrating not only excellence on the field, but also in the classroom. Having all 12 varsity teams qualify for playoffs speaks volumes about the overall strength and depth of Granite Bay's athletic program. Baseball showed consistent excellence by winning a 3rd straight section title. And it's also great to hear about the new group of student leaders elected as Grizz Nation leaders. And having strong leadership within the student body can help inspire and unite the school community, as we all know. The arts at Granite Bay, they were super busy this spring. They continue to demonstrate their vibrant and diverse arts program. The spring musical Chicago provided both performers and audiences with a memorable experience The spring dance show featured student choreographed dances with the theme of top of the charts, showcasing a wide variety of skills and talents. The jazz musicians highlighted their skill and dedication by winning silver at the Jazz Festival in Folsom. And the Spring Art Show, which demonstrated various forms of arts, including ceramics and photography, provided a platform for students to display all of their artistic talents. Hard work, talent, dedication was demonstrated by the Winter Guard and percussion teams, thereby taking several high honors, and the choir earning a gold at their festival as well. Oakmont. A lot going on in athletics at Oakmont. Their 3.5 GPA for varsity spring sports reflected the dedication of their student athletes, again, not only on the field, but in the classroom. Boys tennis making it to the first round of SJF team playoffs, and AJ Rodriguez advancing to the second round of individual playoffs demonstrated the team and the individual's competitiveness and skill. Softball reaching the second round of playoffs, and volleyball becoming semifinalists in the SJS D3 playoffs showed strength and determination by both teams. Baseball's accomplishments are truly remarkable, being FEL champs, back-to-back SJS champs, and CIF NorCal champions. A special congratulations to Tony Lyra for earning FVL offensive MVP, and Trevor Wilson for FVL defensive MVP. Swim and dive success with multiple qualifiers for SJS sections, and Peyton Henry's breaking of a long-standing school record in 50-meter free at section should be highlighted. Track and field had a stellar season with many qualifiers for SJS subsections, 9 for masters, and impressive performances by athletes like Devin Chambers and Lily Harlan, who won SJS titles and qualified for the state. Boys golf having 4 qualifiers for the SJS divisional tournament is a testament to the team's skill and competitiveness. And finally, esports demonstrated the growing recognition and success of competitive gaming at the high school level by advancing to SJS playoffs. A lot going on at Oakmont for performing arts as well. They had a diverse and exciting spring season. The Fall Play Puffs provided audiences with an entertaining and imaginative theatrical experience, while the Winter Dance Show, 90s Throwback Dance, was a nostalgic trip down memory lane. Well, maybe not for the students, but probably for the adults that witnessed it. The Royal Blue Regiment Marching Band captivated audiences during performances, while the musical Six offered exciting experiences. Improv shows provided our students with the chance to showcase their quick thinking and their comedic timing, and the Spring Dance Show remakes, covers, dance featured creative and expressive performances. The Winter Guard impressed, and the Winter-Spring concert showcased the musical talents of the students across various instruments and genres. And finally, the Senior Performing Arts Showcase was a special event celebrating the talents and achievements of all the graduating seniors, providing them with the platform to shine one last time before moving on to new endeavors. Roseville Athletics. We have some great things happening at Roseville this spring. In stunt, winning the CVC championship again and reaching the quarterfinals in sections. In golf, boys golf finished second in CVC and third in the Masters. Boys track and field, Joe Bradley had an outstanding performance, achieving the longest jump in state and ranking 4th in the nation, while breaking a school record from 1966. Is truly remarkable and highlights his exceptional talents. For girls track and field, winning the Rockland Invitational, take down distance, and throw invitational meet demonstrated the team's competitiveness and grit. And Kylie Hunter's breaking of another school record, this time in shot put, set in 1980, is a significant achievement and speaks to all of her hard work as well. And the fact that 19 athletes moved on to masters in 14 events and track and field showcased their depth and strength as a team. The swim team's excellence was highlighted by Lauren Nielsen's setting of another school record in the 500 freestyle, and the relay team setting of another school record in the 200 freestyle relay. And then finally, softball achievements of finishing second in the CVC and advancing to playoffs showcased their determination as a team. And again, a lot of things happening at Roseville in the arts. The Addams Family was a blast for the performers as well as the audience members. The Paint Night event was a wonderful way to foster a sense of community, encourage artistic expression. The AP Art History field trip to Momo in San Francisco provided students with a valuable opportunity to deepen their understanding of both art and art history. Creating murals at Caseburg Elementary, Roseville Raceway, and the RHS 900 building not only added beauty to these spaces, but also allowed the students to contribute to their community through their artistic talents. The Art 4 and AP Art shows provided platforms for students to exhibit their artworks. Ceramics collaboration with Junction Elementary provided a value of artistic community engagement and also allowed students to work together on meaningful projects. And their VAPA night provided a wonderful opportunity for students to share their talents once again with the community members. West Park. Athletics. West Park athletic achievements were truly outstanding, with both boys and girls teams excelling across various sports, being crowned the FVL Boys All Sports Champions and the FVL Girls All Sports Champions speaks to overall strength and depth of West Park's athletic program. With an impressive 23 of the 26 programs making it to playoffs this spring, West Park's teams are consistently competitive across the board. Stunt, boys volleyball, and track and field were all FVL champions. And Weston Wade received the A. Dale Lackey Scholarship, and this is awarded to the hardest working high school student athlete within CIF who demonstrates academic excellence, leadership, and good citizenship. We actually had 2 winners of this award, and the second one I'll highlight in then the next athletic screen. The inaugural girls lacrosse season makes an exciting new chapter, offering girls the opportunity to participate in a new sport at West Park. In the arts, I know that from, probably not gonna be able to read that from here, but I'll walk you through it. Their arts programs excelled across the board in spring, showcasing their talents in many different areas and disciplines. Their symphonic band and jazz band's achievements of earning superior ratings at both their festivals is a testament to all of their dedication in music. The varsity indoor guards' skill, precision, and teamwork was highlighted by an undefeated season and a championship at the NCBA National A Division. In theater arts, winning a gold award for one act, along with numerous awards for performances, highlighted talents of their students, and the unprecedented success of Urinetown, the musical, further underscored the program's achievements. This was West Park's first term with a choir, otherwise known as the West Park Singers. And the dance program shined with the showcase dance show performances within the Roseville Holiday Parade, and they also gave back to the youth by hosting 150 plus youth dancers at the Mini Momentum Camp. In addition, they were able to add this year another art teacher, and they completed a successful art show in the visual art program, which demonstrated a commitment to growing an art program at West Park. And finally, moving on to Wood Creek. Wood Creek had another strong athletic spring season, taking home 4 league championships in baseball, boys tennis, girls lacrosse, and boys volleyball. Boys golf was the CVC champs and SJS section champions. And Connor Barth was also awarded the CIF SJS A. Dale Lackey Scholarship as well. In addition, they have highlighted many individual students and awards on this slide, from everything from scholar athlete to athlete of the year. And finally, visual and performing arts at Wood Creek. They had incredible success this spring. The graphic design program's achievement of establishing a fully operational screen print shop was a significant milestone to the school, providing our students with hands-on experiences and skills. Chambers Choir performance at the All-State Festival at Sonoma State showcased their musical excellence. Winter Percussion had a successful competitive season, as well as both of their jazz bands. And the dance department highlighted their dedication to performance and advocacy with a spring dance show and representation at the California State Performing Arts Advocacy Day. The theater arts had a full season of advanced drama and also attended the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. And the commercial music project, frequent performances on campus, a spring show, and off-campus venues showcased their dedication to sharing their music with the community. So overall, our athletic and arts achievements for spring of 2024 were quite incredible. It reflects a culture of excellence, teamwork, and dedication across our schools. I'd like to congratulate all of our students, our coaches, our advisors, and all of our supporters who contribute to these incredible successes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, moving on to our reports and communications. Our first item is board expectations, which Tiffany has offered to read, or got volunteered to read.
Yes. Our board expectations prepare all students for life, college, and career through high-quality academic opportunities for all students and support student academic success. Engage in partnership with families and the community. The school is a welcoming, safe environment that serves as the center of student learning, activities, athletics, and performing arts. Promote a sense of community in our schools and the surrounding areas. Utilize effective governance and business practices. Remain open, transparent, and accountable to the community. Serve as an employer of choice with the highest quality teachers and staff.
Thank you very much. We're now going to go into board reports, and I think we'll start at this end if you're ready.
I will just say I enjoyed Granite Bay and Oakmont's graduation, and I'm super happy it's summer.
Very good.
I also loved attending Roseville High School and Wood Creek High School's graduations. It was a real privilege for me to be there. It was very, very exciting, and I appreciated all that the staff did to make those such successful events. It doesn't just happen. I know it doesn't. So it was very, very great. And I had a great time with Mel and Heidi and Joe at RHS, and then with, Rob, like with Rob at Wood Creek. We had a really good time. So sorry, everybody else.
Well, Tiffany said it all. We had a great time. We're at Wood Creek and Roseville High, and man, Tiffany had this amazing tiger dress. So as the Roseville Tiger mom, I really got to up my game. But no, the kids were just so excited, and it's fun, and it makes all the hard work worth it, and yay for summer. So that's about all for me.
Carrie.
I also greatly enjoyed both the Antelope and West Park High School graduation ceremonies. They were both so different. I really appreciated Antelope, just seeing the teachers come together, and especially seeing Mr. Becker interact with his old staff. It just has a little special feel. And then, of course, at West Park, just seeing all the the talents that they had the dancers and the singers, and it was very entertaining and a little bit different and nerve-wracking that we were on a separate stage right in front of the parents, but everything worked out really well. It was super smooth and a great night, and they're just awesome experiences. And I'm looking forward to the summer to relax a little bit.
Great, thank you. Well, graduations, lots of those. The heat came in just right in time to make sure that we were all as uncomfortable as possible in the bright sun, but not as bad as all the students sitting there in their gowns. We had a special meeting, a week or so ago, which we worked on the evaluation process timeline and evaluation instrument, which is going to be on our agenda in a little bit. Had a subsequent meeting with two, which I'll discuss later when we get to that item. Yesterday I had a great time meeting with all of our principals, getting together and sort of having a little end-of-year celebration. Me and all of them, we had a great time. I got to attend the graduation ceremonies at Oakmont, where my youngest daughter graduated, so that ended my 9-year run of being a parent at Oakmont High School. But it's been a lot of fun being there for the last 9 years. Went to Pathways and really enjoyed that. And then, of course, adult school, which is always my favorite graduation to go to. And for anyone who hasn't been to one of those, I highly suggest you take the time to do it because it's a completely different ceremony. And there's some incredible stories that have been shared at the graduation. Finally, I'd like to address the concerns that have been raised regarding student speeches at the Granite Bay and Oakmont High School graduation ceremonies. I had a number of parents reach out to me directly, and I know we as a board received some emails, and I'm sure the administration did as well. During those two events, student speakers made comments expressing support for Palestine, including one in which there was a call to action and a fundraising appeal for students and families in attendance. First and foremost, I want to make it clear, very clear, that both of these students went off the scripts that they had submitted to the schools. Generally, each graduation speaker submits what they are going to say in advance of the administration, and they're reviewed. I would say that both these students, their acts were pretty intentional as they submitted one statement or one speech and then brought with them additional words on papers that they read from. I personally believe that they knew it was wrong. Obviously, they wouldn't have submitted a different speech. Not wrong that they have those opinions, but that it's wrong to use their position and platform at a graduation to express their political reviews or political views. We recognize clearly that students have the right to free speech. It's a fundamental principle. We uphold it day to day, every day in our educational system. And the ability to express varied viewpoints is a cornerstone of not only our democracy, but our educational philosophy. However, I just want to remind people with this right comes a responsibility to exercise your freedom of speech thoughtfully and respectfully, particularly when you're in mixed crowds. These students should have known that these expressions of speech would be offensive to not only just some of the students, but a number of people and families who came there to expecting to have a politics-free day celebrating academic success and the culmination of years of learning in our schools. I've heard from a number of our Jewish students, families, staff, and community members how upset they were that that stage was used for that purpose. As president of the board, I want to extend my heartfelt apologies to those who were offended and hurt by those remarks. I know it was not our intention as a school district or any of the individual sites' intentions to create a platform for political speech or for any member of our community to feel marginalized or disrespected during what really should have been joyous family celebrations of students' achievements. There's a time and a place for this type of activism. I just don't think these graduation ceremonies were neither the time nor the place to do so. So for myself and on behalf of a number of people who've shared the same thoughts with me, I'm sorry to those who were impacted. With that, we'll move on to superintendent and cabinet reports.
All right, thank you, Pete. Really just one. I had the opportunity today to be the keynote speaker at the Roseville Chamber Luncheon, which was really fun and exciting to see how many of those folks are alumni of our district and operating business in our city. So it was really an opportunity to discuss how we connect education in the community through those partnerships. Talked about some of the athletic performing arts connections, talked about dual enrollment, CTE, and our internships, and that we're trying to create graduates who will come back and reside in our city and start their own careers and raise their families here. And it was nice to see people come up to say, yeah, I graduated from, Granite Bay in 2009, and another one was from Roseville in 2012, and they're back here working, and they're part of the chamber. And so it was a really neat opportunity, and had a lot of positive connections after, so it was a fun day. And then last but not least, somebody in the audience is sitting in her last board meeting with us, Miss Jennifer Layton. will
Stand
be
up, stand up,
retiring
stand up.
at the end of this week after 38 years in our district. So from choir to hanging out with everyone in the boardroom. So she's done it all. And that's all.
Thank you. 2. No comments. Joe.
Nothing. Happy summer.
Mel.
I'm good.
Brad.
I know you want me to say nothing. I do want to say that in the last week, we've had funerals and celebrations of life for 3 people that were very important to the district. Joanne Pelham worked in payroll for over 36 years in the district, and she recently passed after a battle with a long illness. Aldo Panesci was key not only to some of our bond measures, as well as the Bill Santucci Scholarship Fund that we raise every year and fund $20,000+ in scholarships annually. But he was also huge in terms of just the Roseville community, city, rather supporting political campaigns, or more importantly, he was just an advocate for helping people. He's a very kind soul. And then lastly, Gary Ginslinger, who was a longtime employee as well as a board member, was with Roseville Joint for over 40 years. We had his celebration of life last Saturday. So those are just 3 people that I wanted to mention publicly because they were so important to this district. So thank you.
Thank you. Committee reports. I know the policy committee met, and you'll see a number of policies that have been forwarded to the consent agenda and some that have been forwarded to the action portion of the agenda. So we'll be seeing those shortly. I don't think anyone from RSEA is here for RSEA report. So now we'll go to public comment, but before we do, Lori C., you didn't say which item you want to speak on, so who's Lori? Which item do you want to speak on? Open forum? What? You're just going to pass overall? Okay. All right, so then we'll go to public comment. I have 2 cards for public comment. First will be Michelle Tong, and then Ann. Just push the button that looks like a person.
Oh, the person one, got it. Good evening. I want to say that I think it's shameful and embarrassing that each of you signed on to a letter opposing AB 1955. AB 1955 would prohibit school districts, county offices of education, charter schools, and the state special schools and a member of the governing board or body of those educational entities from enacting or enforcing any policy, rule, or administrative regulation that requires an employee or a contractor to disclose any information related to a pupil's sexual orientation, gender identity, excuse me, or gender expression to any other person without the pupil's consent unless otherwise required by law. Do you know why? Because it is a student's right to decide when and how they want to express their identity. I feel I have to say this at each meeting. Your job is to govern for the good of all students, all teachers, and all staff. Instead, at every turn, you attempt to force your extreme political agendas on our students and our teachers. I know that you will attempt to counter with the tired argument that parents have rights, or the lie that AB 1955 requires teachers to keep secrets from parents. AB 1955 does not take any rights from a parent, and it allows teachers to do what they were hired for, to teach. Despite the rhetoric, AB 1955 takes nothing from parents. I'm sure you'll also counter with the local control argument. If history has taught us anything, it has taught us that local control has been used to mask and perpetuate discriminatory practices in our school districts. Rogue school districts like Rockland and Chino are the reason that the state has to step in to protect our students and our teachers. And I can affirmatively say rogue because I'm sure you're aware they're being sued. Not to mention that there was an attempt to put an initiative on the ballot to restrict the rights of transgender youth, which did not receive enough signatures to place on the ballot. What does that tell you? Californians want to protect transgender children. I encourage each of you to remove your names from that letter and support AB 1955 for our students and teachers.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ann.
Oh, good evening.
I know you have two, so this is for the open forum, and then I'll call you back when you're on 7.1.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. So I'm going to speak to something from a totally different lens. So this has to do with collecting information about students. So everything's like a wide net. So Senate Bill 357 is titled Vehicles, Physician and Surgeon Reporting. So what this bill's doing, it's fast tracking right now. It's already been approved by the Senate. It's going through Assembly right now. It gives a physician or surgeon a very wide net to refuse a learner's permit, a driver's permit, or a driver's license. So they would have to submit their medical information or information they collect from the school. So say there's counseling at school, or someone falls and goes to the office and needs help, and then a mental health specialist on site at the school makes notes that they feel the student is anxious, seems disturbed, maybe a concern for an inability for them to drive. All that information's routed to the public local health officer for public health in every county in California. And why this is concerning is it's such a wide net, because basically the legislation states that these physicians, they can deem any student or adult that has any physical or mental disability, disease, or disorder that could affect the safe operation of a vehicle. I know it's kind of hard to see what's going on, but I've been in healthcare for 33 years, and when you work inside the hospital system, you see a lot of stuff that isn't what's presented to the public, and you have to stay silent. And the best way for me to just educate everybody is just speaking to legislation. I'm not coming here with a political agenda. I just would really want you folks to think about the information that's collected in the schools on the students and what it's getting used for. It could be for big pharma, because since other things have been exposed in the healthcare industry, the best way to make money is now everyone's mental. And according to this bill, it's written as a very wide net. If you have any physical, and it says it right here, any physical condition, any mental health disease or disorder, a physician, which that's the most powerful pin ever, is a pin of a physician. They can take away your children, your home, your land, your animals. And so maybe going forward, before you go into the new year, really think about any type of information that maybe a teachers union's asking, because maybe the federal government's pushing on them through the state. But the theme is mental health, and the only way to do that is disperse all these counselors and all the rhetoric that we need to really talk to the students and baby them and work with the community, when really that's up to a parent, unless there's some physical abuse.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Oh, I'm so sorry, but I hope that makes sense. So it's Senate Bill 357.
Thank you. All right, that's the last card I had. Kevin, come on up. Just pass your card over to somebody, and it'll get to me eventually.
Absolutely. So thanks, Pete. I wanted to thank you for your comment earlier about the speech at graduation. And it's good to know that you know what to do when you disagree with what someone's saying in our district. So I guess I'm just a little sad that there are a couple other times when that didn't happen. So it was a little more than a year ago that a Proud Boy from out of town came to our meeting at West Park, caused a disruption, threw the white power sign, and I didn't hear that same kind of disagreement. And I've seen speakers come and call our teachers groomers and things like that, and I didn't hear that kind of disagreement come from the board. Mr. Basham, several meetings later, made a statement letting us know that staff disagrees, but I didn't hear that kind of disagreement from the board. So I guess what I'd say is I encourage you to do it more often. Let us know when you disagree, because otherwise I'm going to take from that maybe you don't disagree with some of those things that I very much do disagree with, and I hope others in our community also do. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. No more public comment? All right, we'll now move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items on consent that members wish to pull?
Yeah.
Okay. Turn your mic on, please.
On 6.5, can I pull 5141.5?
5141.5?
5141.5.
Board policy, BP.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Tiffany,
And in addition to that, I wanted to pull 6115, board policy, ceremonies and observances.
BP, all right. Anybody else?
Can you say that again? Sorry.
6115, BP, ceremonies and observances. Okay, so with the exception of those two policies that are contained in that item, we'll just move those to when we talk about the other board policies. Don't let me forget. Do I have a motion on the rest of the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the rest of the consent
We have
agenda.
a motion and a second.
Second.
All right,
Yes.
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 All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, speaking of moving it to when we talk about new and updated board policies, that's our next item. So what I'm going to suggest is that we start with the two that were pulled and then go down the order of the other ones, which there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. And depending on how convoluted things get, we will either vote on them individually or we'll keep track of what we're doing and vote them together, but I can't tell you because I don't know where all this is going to go. So, starting with Marla, because you pulled the first one, 51. What's that?
It's also in numerical order. Yes. Right, 5141.5. So I pulled this. This is the mental health board policy. Mainly, and I'll just share, mainly to add some clarification to one paragraph. So I'd just like to make some suggestions of just.
Let me get it
Okay.
pulled up. Sorry, I'm
Yeah,
a
if you
little
could
bit
pull it
behind
up.
here.
Everyone pull it up.
51. Oh, 5141. Oh, there it is, sorry. I really need to get new glasses. Okay, now, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so it's toward the end. It's under the heading of the mental health counseling and referrals. So that first paragraph, and I met with John and Melanie today just to make sure that what I understood was what the intent was. So my suggestions are in line with what Melanie said was also in line with the intent of that paragraph.
Okay.
So, and I'll probably bring it up again later. I feel like there is a confusion between what counseling, therapy, short-term coaching, as an outsider, like a parent community member, that means the same thing to me, but in the world of education and these services, they're very distinct. So the first sentence, which I want to leave as is, but just for context, it's specifically referring to a school counselor, school psychologist, school social worker, and the important part of that sentence is they're going to provide counseling in accordance with the specialization authorized by the individual's credential, period. And then following that, it's talking about therapeutic mental health services, which happen in the wellness center. And so I want to make some suggestions so that we're clear on distinguishing between the rest of that paragraph with the first paragraph. I hope I'm making sense. So what I'd like to suggest is, as needed, students and their parents, guardians may be provided referrals to mental health services in our wellness centers. I'm trying to clarify it's wellness centers, and in the community. And then I would just suggest taking out the and/or mental health services at or near district schools. That in our communities, that seems redundant. And then the rest is fine. And then I'd just like to change the heading to mental health counseling and referrals for therapy to try to distinguish between counseling and therapy. And that's.
Do you by chance have a red line version that we can have and put up for folks?
I should have. I just have some scratch paper here
Oh,
that I
okay.
was.
So,
Forgive me. I'm
gonna-
sorry.
I just want to make sure that everybody knows what we're talking about. So I'm going to try and
Next time.
repeat what I heard.
Okay.
changing the headline so that, tell me what it was supposed to be after referrals.
Mental health counseling and referrals for therapy.
Referrals for therapy. Okay. And then the other change you wanted to make was in the section of, that's already read, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and remind us that specific change.
I actually forget, actually, I don't know if it's red.
No.
It's not red, it's
Sorry.
not red, sorry.
It's
No,
the line
so the
after.
black, no, it's before, actually.
Okay.
So as needed, students, their parents, guardians may be provided referrals to mental health services in our wellness centers and in the community.
Okay,
And that's all I want to change.
okay, so I would just suggest that that's in the wellness centers and/or the community.
Okay, that's fine.
And then it would strike everything
Yes.
that comes after
Yes.
the two mental health.
Yes.
Okay. Everybody up here clear on that?
Yes.
Okay. And then, was there one other change?
That is it for that,
Okay.
yeah.
So the thing that I forgot to do, I'm not going to forget all this, is I forgot to call for public comment before we get into all this so that we're not calling, because we don't know
Yep.
which one of each of these everybody wants to speak to. So I'm going to ask just to put a pin on this. I wrote down what you said, and if we have to repeat it, we will. But I want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to speak on any of the items in 7.1 since we sort of lump this in. And then we have the benefit of that before we go on. So this is your opportunity to speak on any of the items on 7.1. Our first speaker is Ann, followed by Christina, followed by Nicole. So, did Ann leave? All right. Those were nice short comments, Ann. So that means Christina, followed by Nicole. Anyone else want to speak? Maybe. Okay.
On deck?
Yep.
Okay.
Push the button and pull the mic down. There you go.
Good evening. I'm speaking on 6164.2, the guidance counseling service, since you guys have a list. California Ed Code 49660, known as AB 2508, states the school district may and is urged to provide access to comprehensive counseling programs. Using the term, I quote, is urged to, unquote, is a viewpoint, not a requirement. Ed Code identifies 11 permissible areas that may be included in counseling. So why is the cabinet and administration pushing for the governing board to expand the responsibilities of school counselors? School counselors are credentialed staff not licensed by the Board of Behavioral Services, and yet there's a push by political arms to increase counselors, their responsibilities, and expand school-based health interventions in schools. A recent joint position statement by California Association of School Counselors, California Association of School Psychologists, and California Association of School Social Workers focuses on establishing schools as centers for wellness through partnerships with mental health systems. In their joint statement, they've identified the need for ongoing revenue to deliver school-based mental health services through partnerships. This ties to the newly created medical billing codes for schools through CYBHI. County offices of education are partnering with community-based organizations across the state to insert more mental health services in schools while dismantling local control. Piece by piece, legislators have an agenda to implement the community schools model across the state. Now, the governor has stated it is his goal to make 1 out of every 4 schools a community school by 2025. Part of the transformation of the community schools model includes school counselors. If the board approves the revision to policy 6164.2, it will send a message to the community that the district is moving away from guidance counseling that focuses on academic development, implementation, and long-range educational plans to inserting school-based health counseling. Please consider all the pieces that are coming down from the state to dismantle local control, remove parental involvement and consent, while trying to shift a school's focus from academics to school-based health centers. I strongly urge you to vote no on the proposed revisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Nicole?
Hello. I'm going to be reading for Kimberly Crabtree. She asked me to read her statement to the board. So these are her words. She says, my comments were sent to each of you on an email on June 8th. Thank you, Marla, for responding. For the rest, I'll assume you did not open or read the emails, so I want to reiterate my message to you. The RJUHSD community is aware of the gap or loophole you have placed into Board Policy 5141.5, mental health, allegedly at the direction of your council. This policy cannot stand and should be pulled and rewritten. It is written to give the appearance that parents are at the forefront to give consent for their students' mental health services while at school. However, the written word isolates that service only through the Wellness Center. It also makes no requirement for when, how parents are notified to provide consent and if said parent is invited to engage, or that there is even a process for the parent's engagement. This policy promotes secret keeping and deceives parents. I am asking you to reread and vote no on this policy as it stands. It must be rewritten to reflect that parent consent is required for all enrolled students prior to delivering services and regardless of RJUHSD location or representative, which should include temporary college interns or anyone serving under a MOU. If your legal counsel directed you to mislead families by this statement so that students could be in charge of their mental health needs secretly, then I suggest you find new counsel. As written, anyone can provide mental health services to a student at a GSA meeting, the lunchroom, a football game, or standing in the bus line. In other words, no consent is needed when not going through the Wellness Center, and even worse, consent can happen whenever someone decides to ask for it. This policy update created a huge loophole that will keep parents in the dark. RJUHSD representatives providing support from any RJUHSD jurisdiction is the correct directive, in addition to including parents and obtaining their consent prior to any treatment services to a RJUHSD student. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin, I've seen you scribbling. Does that mean you want to speak?
It does. Thank you, Pete.
You don't need to fill out a form because.
I can give you a card if you want.
No, I'm gonna
Anytime you
add
want
it.
a card,
I'm going to add it to your previous one.
Sure, that's fine. So I just want to echo some of the comments I made in the Policy Review Committee. We heard people talk about the statute says is urged, so there's some things that you don't have to do. And I just want to keep telling you all that I think our schools are great. I think the presentation from Melanie earlier about all of our great sporting events and theatrical events was great. I went to Chicago at Granite Bay High School. I thought it was great. I go and I watch these athletic events. I think our academics is great. From Granite Bay High School, we've got people going to lots of great colleges from this year. I don't know the details of all the other schools, but they're also doing great. So your job is to keep it that way. And part of doing that is doing some things that the state doesn't require you to do. You should do them anyway, because they're good for our community. Our schools are better than other people's schools. That's why I chose to live in Roseville. Hopefully that's why some of you chose to live here too. So, but we also have issues that we need to work on, and some of them relate to mental health. I think this world would be better if everyone had a therapist, more people instead of fewer. I think that I appreciate Marla's point about the difference between therapy and some other things that we provide in the wellness centers. That's fine. I think those comments are good. But we've got people in need. We've heard our wellness centers speak about the biggest needs being things like anxiety. It's not about gender identity and stuff like that. That's not what's going on day to day in the wellness centers. But we had a suicide at Granite Bay High School this year. It's really sad. There was another suicide at Del Oro on the last day of school. And people are in need, and our schools are a place that could provide that referral to some other mental health professional in the community and look out for the needs of our students. And nothing about that is keeping secrets from parents. There's nothing that you all do, there's nothing in these policies that prevents me from talking to my children, and there's nothing that you could do that prevents me from talking to my children. They come to my house every day, and I can ask them whatever question they want. I know what name they prefer to use. I gave my children the given names Benjamin and Nicholas, but they're called Ben and Nick, and they get to pick what nickname. Some people go by their middle name. Some people want to go by a different name. I can ask them, they can tell me. The government doesn't need to get involved in that conversation, and you all should stay out of it. Frankly, I think it's a sort of thing that you should be saying is the government should stay out of that. Parents could talk to their children. No one's stopping you. Go do it. Thanks.
Thanks. Push the button for me. Anyone else? All right, we'll go ahead and close public comment now on 7.1. I apologize for that, but I wanted to make sure we didn't leave the public out in the cold on that. So I want to ask Kim, did you get those edits? Because she's the most important person when it comes to the edits.
No, I'm going to grab these.
Okay.
Pete, can I just say one thing? You wanted me to remind
Yes,
you
I was-
that we added in guardian to this after the board policy committee review, so I just wanted to remind you of that, just so if you wanted to acknowledge that, it was changed a little bit.
Yeah. The board policy committee only had the words parent consent because of a typo, so we added that. But since we're talking about it and changing it now, I appreciate that. So we have all your edits, and I think we got your explanations. Is there anything else you want to add to that?
No, because I have other, I'll just segue my comments to the other
As we get to them, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I have a question for staff. Do we provide therapeutic mental health services anywhere but besides our wellness center?
For our general ed students, no. There are some cases with special ed students, and that would be through their IEP, that they would maybe get services that are provided through their special ed IEP, and maybe that takes place in an office or such. But for a general ed student or family who's seeking therapy, therapy happens in the wellness centers
Okay, so just make
by
it clear.
wellness staff.
Absent an IEP, it only happens in our wellness center.
Correct.
Okay, and an IEP, parents already have notification of because it's
Absolutely.
signed and.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
signed. I just wanted to make sure I didn't leave that out.
Okay, I just want to make sure we all understand and are talking about the same thing. So now, comments or questions?
Will you read yours again? Because. Will you read that again, Marla? As I'm trying to just make sure I'm understanding completely.
The heading of mental health counseling and referrals for therapy. And I'm trying to distinguish between the mental health counseling portion and the referrals for therapy. That's because, and this is, I mean, so it's so confusing. We have all these words, counseling, therapy, it's just, it's coaching, it's confusing. So I'm trying, so my intent was to try to make it clear of where the therapeutic mental health services were occurring. So the first sentence is good, but that's not what that it's not happening in the wellness center. It's referring to credentials or the specialization of each. Did you turn your mic off?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, everything I just said. The first sentence refers to making sure that our mental health counselors were working in accordance with their specific authorized credential. And that could be our school counselors, the school psychologists, and the social workers, which are also the wellness center. But I'm suggesting the change of as needed, students and their parents, guardians may be provided referrals to mental health services in our wellness centers and in the community. Sorry, I didn't write that down, and or the community. So I'm trying to establish that this is only happening in the wellness centers. Parent guardian consent is required for all students, including the students who are 18 years old, to access therapeutic mental health services through the wellness center. And then continues. Another discussion would be to define what therapeutic mental health services are, but that's a different agenda.
Hold on. We got to keep everything. So are you clear on what those changes are?
Yeah, yes, thank you. And you want to take out, you want to put a period after community.
Yes.
And take out and/or to mental health services at or near district schools.
Yes, but also referrals to mental health services in the wellness center.
In the wellness center.
Or
in the community, period, and take out this.
That's redundant. I don't like word salad, extra words.
Okay.
Okay, are you clear on that now? Okay. Now you can ask your question.
Melanie, can you refresh us what our current practice is? I know there's something with tiers and what tiers require parental approval and what doesn't. Can you please just remind us what that is?
So specific to the wellness center, a student, say for example, a student leaves second period to go to the wellness center for any reason. So that could be a drop-in. That would be a tier 1. To drop in to the wellness center. That parents are notified through attendance. So there's a parent notification because that student has left class, parents would be notified. If the need starts to amplify and say student or parent would like more, would like anxiety. Kevin mentioned anxiety, so that we have anxiety groups. So that would be like a tier 2 service, is a student joins a group. That requires parent consent. Tier 2 service. I'm in an anxiety group. I'm in a depression group. It's a service to the Wellness Center. When you get even higher in the pyramid of services or the tiers, now we're talking like something like individual therapy. Therapy with a mental health specialist would be considered tier 3 and absolutely, once again, requires parent consent. So tier 2, tier 3 services require parent consent. Tier 1, it could be anything from the Wellness Center sitting at a table at lunch to talk about any of the topics in mental health and to educate students on campus, to a student dropping in for a timeout. That would be tier 1.
So all 3 tiers, there is parental notification and/or consent.
Yeah, if I leave a class to go to the Wellness Center, my parent knows.
Okay.
If I want further service, therapeutic services, just like this red edition adds, the intent of this was to make it clear that we are still saying at 18, we still want parent consent through our services. So that was the intent of this change.
And then the concern that somebody mentioned with therapy being given anywhere in line, like at meetings, do we have wellness specialists or therapists attending any other meetings, or do they only operate within the Wellness Center?
I'm not going to say that they don't go to other places on campus. They would, they move around campus, but therapy requires consent by the parent.
Okay.
And therapy happens in the Wellness Center. Now, something might happen and we might have to go somewhere else and give the therapy in the office, but the physical location is really not the issue. It's the fact that if we're going to give therapy, there is consent given. Bottom line.
Okay, hang on, I want to make sure. Any other questions?
Just one last question. And then do they keep a log and record of that? So would they know consistently like who's been coming? They have that or the parental consent that's there, and is there a timeline for how long
there is when a student goes to wellness, it's logged into Aries as a student meeting. So and then timeline as to how long does therapy last? Is that the
I guess
question,
not
or?
for each session. I mean, is it is the
Record
group?
retention.
Yeah, is it like a 5-session type of a thing, or is it just
It's individual,
so just as
but
needed?
it's usually between 6 to 12 sessions. It definitely has an ending date.
Okay.
The intent is not to continue the therapy. The intent is to, okay, let's provide you some strategies and skills. Now you implement those strategies and skills within the academic environment. Let's check in on you. But there's ending dates.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, now we'll come back for your question.
So I just wanted to respond to, I think your question about the whole loophole of therapy on the football field, right? Just trying to understand maybe where that person was coming from a little bit. And part of this was I was guessing when I first read the email, and then as I processed everything, and I did actually talk to her today. I think what happened is, and this is why I was trying to clarify, is when you read that red line sentence, initially it sounds like parent consent for everything that happens. Anytime a counselor talks to a kid, parent consent first. And so then I think once you realize, then there's loopholes, because what if it doesn't happen in the wellness center? What if it happens on the football field? And I think there was a misunderstanding of what the intent of the original statement was. And so that's why I tried to tighten it up so that this wasn't about a bait and switch of we're trying to trick people that we're approving parent consent for everything, but it turns out it's only in this really, does that make sense?
Yeah.
But I'm going to ask you to hold off because we're still in questions versus explanations. So I
Well-
want to make sure each board member gets their questions answered. It's the only way we can make sure, because it looked like you had questions.
I have just 2 quick follow-up questions to what you were asking Mel. So For the parental consent on tier 2, and you mentioned like anxiety groups or other types of groups, is the parent notified that that's what it is? Like, you give consent for your child to attend an anxiety group? Or is it more general consent that they're going to be attending a group in the wellness center? Does that make sense?
Yes, we're actually updating our consent form to be more specific, that this is the this is the provider that would be providing the service, and these are the services we have aligned for your child to participate in. Parent signs that off, initials, everybody's on the same page before any services are initiated.
Okay, and then if I, as a parent, let's say hypothetically, I am notified that my student wants tier 3, can I, as a parent, come meet that provider if I wanted to?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it's encouraged.
Okay.
Because there's an intake process, and there's often things that we ask the parents to fill out to help us understand what the needs are of your child. So we absolutely encourage the participation of the parent.
Okay. And then I think you've answered this already, but I'm just going to clarify. So if a student came at lunchtime, for instance, because we don't do the notification for tier 1 at lunchtime, but let's say a tier 1 visit at lunchtime turned into a tier 2 or a tier 3 at lunchtime, would that still require
It would never
consent
turn into a tier 2 or tier 3
at lunchtime?
without consent.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
It could lead to it, like maybe I
Sure.
drop in at lunch, I have a conversation, then that expands to, okay, maybe you should think about, and we'll get some information to your parent about the anxiety group.
Okay.
And then there's a whole intake process that includes the parent. So nothing
Got
would
it.
automatically just happen like that. You wouldn't go from tier 1 to tier 3 in a lunch period.
Got it. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
And also, I have something besides this paragraph on this particular board policy too, but still to this paragraph. Is there any reason, or would there be any benefit to just adding the tiers to the board policy so it's clear in there? Tier 1, blank, tier 2, blank, so that we're not having to remind ourselves every time? Do you feel like there would be any value to that?
It's rather specific, and it might change. And so I would hate to put it in there if we decide to change that in the future.
Could I ask a question along that same lines?
It's a question, yeah.
Along the same lines, would it be possible maybe to have a footnote that would then direct to, say, a website that then explained what the mental health, the therapeutic mental health services were? Just, again, to try to clarify, to try to address parent confusion.
I mean, we say for more information, visit the Student Services Mental Wellness website.
Yes.
I mean, that,
Yeah,
you could,
something like that.
Sure.
Therefore, you're not having to go back and edit a board policy to explain the tiers, but just maybe, again, a footnote or something.
I don't know if we do that for anything
Yeah.
else, so it might, we don't say visit our website for athletics, visit our website for curriculum, visit our we don't say that.
Fair point.
But,
yeah.
All right, so any other questions before we get to questions or comments or concerns? All right, on this section, I'm going to come back. So, so now comments. I have a little concern that adding the word therapy and referrals actually makes it more vague, because therapy can be physical therapy, it can be sports therapy, it can be all these other things. So I think since the paragraph is now clearer, I'm a little worried that that adds ambiguity.
But it's under the mental health counseling and referrals.
True, but just my concern is my concern. I think it muddies the water. So I think if we're going to use the word therapy, we should use the word therapeutic mental health services, because therapy can be a gazillion different things, and it's distinctly different, and that can be distinctly different from mental health services. So that's really the only concern I have. So, in the heading, yes. Because the edit was to change the headline to say, to refer to therapy.
I wrote down therapeutic, so I must agree with you.
Yeah.
So you're suggesting just leaving it as mental health counseling and
Well,
not,
I would, if I were to make a
And-
suggestion, it would be mental health counseling, comma, therapeutic mental health services, comma, and referrals. That's how I would do it, because I think that's more specific. So,
this is not a battle I'm going to, this is, I think, I think the point is, yeah, whatever. I'm just going to say whatever. How's that?
okay, so let's take a motion on these changes before we go on to anything else.
Which changes exactly? I know the first one. What's the
So,
second one exactly?
I'm going to let Marla repeat them, because I don't have it in front of me.
The heading's yours. Okay, suggesting mental health, the heading, mental health counseling and mental health counseling, therapeutic mental services?
Mental health services.
Mental health services and referrals. And then, first sentence is fine. As needed, students and their parent guardians may provide referrals to mental health services in our wellness centers and/or in the community. And then the rest of that sentence, or to mental health services at or near district schools, is taken out.
Okay, so that is the amended language for this paragraph. Do we have a motion on that?
I will move to approve as amended.
All right, we have a motion to amend this. We're not going to approve the policy yet, we're just going to amend the language, because there might be more
That
changes.
in that
So-
paragraph.
So,
Can I say, I'm not sure where, but could we just say mental health counseling and therapeutic referrals? Is that the same thing but less words, do you think? Does that,
fine with me.
Say whatever.
well, does that fit what you're trying to say? If we say mental health counseling and therapeutic referrals, does that fit what you're trying to say and what you're trying to say?
Well, I was just trying to simplify, but also clarify that there's two different areas of counseling and/or / therapy. That's all. So your suggestion would also suffice. It's like, this is minutia.
Okay.
So, but I would go with that. I would go with mental health counseling
I need someone to
and
make a motion picking one of the two.
therapeutic referrals. Okay, I will make a motion. Can I make a motion if it was my own suggestion?
Of
Okay.
course you can.
I'd like to make a motion to amend or just change the heading to mental health counseling and therapeutic referrals, and then the same text that we've been reading
Okay,
all this
so
time.
we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second that.
All right, do we have any discussion on that motion to amend this language before we go further? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, that change is there. Now, Tiffany, I just have one caveat.
Okay.
That we have to be cautious on other changes, because we've notified the public about one set of changes. So if they're minor changes or, seeking clarity, that's fine, but if they're significant changes, we may want to pass this and then bring it back for an amendment, because people would not have had the opportunity to see if it's substantial. So I don't know what you're going to ask, but now you can go in. I just want to make sure we were clear on that.
And as I'm reading through this, so what my question was, as I read and I've thought about, I feel like we're trying to be as transparent as possible with parents. At every turn, that's what everything is aimed towards, which I greatly appreciate. In the section information and training, and at the very end, after number 5, It talks about a poster that should be
Hang on a second,
displayed.
let me find where you're at.
So
What page are you on?
it's- Well, it's the second page after the number 5.
Okay, I
And
see.
it talks about a poster that should be displayed in English, et cetera. It needs to be 8.5 by 11, 12-point font. My only question on this, I love that it says the poster will be prominently, conspicuously displayed in public areas for students, all these places, and at the beginning of the year, it will be distributed online to students. Do we think that it would be wise to add there and to the public on Mel is working on our wellness page and just saying it's also on our public district website page for the wellness. So every parent can see what that page looks like, what information is being shared. That was my thought. And I didn't think through language, but maybe additionally, at the beginning of each school year, the poster shall be distributed online to students and the community through social media, websites, portals, and learning platforms. Maybe something as simple as that, just to say it's available.
So I think, so that is a clarification versus a substantial change, so we can do that.
Okay.
John, you were going to say something?
Yeah, that's already in it.
Okay.
Stated at the bottom, and it's exactly what you just said. It has to be. Oh, I thought I turned it on. It has to be digitized, distributed online through social media, internet, websites, portals, learning platforms, the beginning of every school year.
Okay.
So it's part of that, what we have to do anyways, so it would likely end up being on the district's wellness website.
So it seems like what I'm hearing is that since we're already distributing it online to students through these methods, that we would be able to say students and the community, add those two words, through the same channels, and that might add our distribution a little bit, but won't substantially change what we're doing. Am I,
And the community.
would that address your concern? Is that easily doable, what we're doing? Okay. So, any other proposed changes to this before we, okay, so now a motion would be to,
I will make a motion to add the words "and the community"
okay,
at the end of that, in that paragraph, as we have previously stated.
great. Do we have a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now a motion to approve this board policy as amended. Would someone like to make that?
I'll make a motion to approve a board policy 5141.5
As amended.
as amended.
Okay, a second.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. One down, 300 to go. All right, so our next item is BP 6115. Let's give everyone a chance to pull it up. Tiffany, I believe you pulled this one? Oops. All right, I'm ready.
My thought on this, I felt that the last paragraph here, in addition, the board may, through the adoption of a resolution, authorize the display of symbolic flags or banners in support of specific awareness months. I feel that we should amend that to reflect that it's only through an adoption of resolution that any symbolic flag or banner in support of specific awareness months could be flown other than the American flag or the flag of the state of California.
I believe that's what our administrative regulation says. Our AR is not up here, but oh wait, it is. Let me pull up AR 6115. We had this discussion not that long ago, like a year and a half ago. Let me find it here. Give me a second while I read.
Are you talking about the display of flag?
Yeah, so AR at the bottom of the second page, I think it is. Let me see here.
I was actually, and perhaps I was looking, I saw it's in the board policy, it talks about the display of the flags,
Yeah.
but I didn't,
Yeah,
I
so
can see on
the
the-
two work together. Sorry, I'm reading here. Give me a second to read.
Yeah, it's not stated explicitly in the AR because that's what the administrative side is. That's the staff side, whereas
Okay.
the governing side is in the BP. That's probably why that specific language isn't in there, because this would be staff side.
Where's the language? I know we have language that says it's only the California and U.S. flag.
Yeah,
Where
it's
am I
down
not-
at the bottom.
Of which one are you looking at?
Let me pull back up. I'm in the AR.
Okay.
It says it, display a flag at the bottom,
The bottom of page 2.
but it's not as explicit as the BP. It just talks about flying
Okay,
at
yeah.
half-staff and different times and different displays.
So,
But it's not as explicit as the paragraph or the sentence in.
Right. So I would just say that bottom one line that gives the board the authority to do a resolution is, even without that in, the board always has that authority to do that, because that's one of the things that I don't think this was added last time. But,
the board has the authority to approve a resolution, but it doesn't, I just feel like there's any number of particular awareness that people are, that's near and dear to different people's hearts in the community. And we can begin to, I think, some clarification that the only flags that are flown are going to be the American flag and the flag of the state of California, unless adopted through resolution.
yeah.
Not that we can say that there's one, but there's
Right.
no flag unless that, and we remain focused on the school.
If that was to be an addition, I think that'd be under display of flag, it could be number 9, I believe.
Yeah, I think it would be in the easiest place to amend it would be in the AR, but maybe the appropriate place to amend it is in the BP, which I think would be a change that we might want to have. We might want to just clean up that last line to do that, and I think that would be a substantial change. So if we want to do that, my suggestion would be that we take this one item and we ask staff to come back with some clarifying language that meets, if assuming all the board agrees, that the board intent is to allow only the 2 flags except by resolution of the board. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But I think that as we look at this, it would be something that we really didn't notice if we did that. So is everyone on the board comfortable with that direction?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so what we would do is we would take this one and we would refer it back to the superintendent for additional work in the area that we just discussed. And they can work on the wordsmithing, and if they think the AR needs to be changed, they can bring that back with it, if that meets your expectations.
Pete, for clarification, you want this to run through BPRC or just straight back to board agenda?
I think it can come right back to the
Okay.
board agenda, since it's been through, since we're given direction, the policy committee does. No, it's just direction to staff. Okay, so those are the ones that came off consent. So now,
So also 611, AR 6115,
that's at their discretion, so,
so just BP.
yep. So everything else has already been approved on the consent agenda, so that puts us into the meat of what's already in 7.1 besides the ones we added. So I would suggest we take these each individually, starting with 410. Let me just say that the Board Policy Committee recognized that these are ones that, based on our observations of what the board has discussed in the past and what individual board members have expressed, that we knew these are ones that members of the board would most likely want to opine on. So instead of us moving them on consent, Terry and I decided at the policy committee that we would bring them here. And so we have the recommended language, and the policy committee is making no recommendation on these other than for us to have a discussion. And if anybody wants to entertain anything on any of those, we'll take them one at a time. So I'm going to call out the first one, 0410, board policy. Does anybody have anything that they would like to discuss? Or any questions they'd like to ask staff related to the changes? Then once we have those questions answered, then we can discuss whether we want to do any additional changes.
I do.
Okay.
I have two questions right now. My first is what is said in 0410. I talked with Brad about this earlier, but I'm asking it here. Does it connect? Oh, Rob, hello.
Hi.
As we read this, does this allow males to join in female sports? Does this have any connection to that?
So it's a broad question. Does it have any? And so the answer is no. This does not directly impact that. If you look at AR 1266, which has been in place since 2013, that's where the allowance for students that identify in a particular way to select the restroom that they use, the locker room that they use, what sport that they participate in. So that's where the largest part of that resides, along with CIF bylaws that are very clear about students being able to select the sport that they participate in based on their gender identity. That said, if somehow we as a district, somebody perceived us discriminating against them, that's where this policy could become a part of that. So there is some overlapping, but to answer your question, no, this alone and these changes do not impact that in any way.
Thank you. Also, how will adopting 0410 change what our current practice is in the district?
Well, what it does is this: if you look at the first line there, what it's really doing is it is being clear that the board and the superintendent can be, held responsible if somebody files a complaint of discrimination. It also makes some minor changes to the protected classes. If you look at the second paragraph there, where it says the Board of Trustees is committed to providing, they added medical conditions, they added reproductive health, as well as veteran and military status. So they've added some military status or some different protected classes there. And then if you look down at the bottom, all allegations of unlawful discrimination in the district programs and activities shall be brought and investigated through 1312.3, which is our uniform complaint policy, which includes Title IX, which would be a situation that we're discussing right now, where if a student was in some way felt that they were discriminated against, we're obligated to look into that. So 0410 and 1312.3, again, are intertwined in that 0410 is talking about non-discrimination. The uniform complaint policy is used specifically for us to investigate and look into complaints of discrimination.
Can I make a clarification on
Sure.
the answer? Because Rob, you used the words, the board could be responsible, and I think what you meant is complaints can be made against the board for discrimination.
Yes, sorry.
And that's a key difference, because the district, obviously, people can complain against the district or any employees of the district, and this makes it clear they can make a complaint against the school board. However, when it gets to responsibility, there's a whole body of law on legislative immunity and official acts of the board under the powers that are granted to them by the state. So it's much more convoluted than just responsibility. It's more, you're subject to that complaint process, the investigation process. And I will tell you, without going into details, the board has been, and individual board members have had complaints made against them under these policies. And we've handled them, essentially we handle them just like we do all the other complaints. There's no carve out for us.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that clarification.
I think too, I guess what I'm asking by that question is the practice that we're following in the district right now going to change if tonight as a board we take action to accept 0410?
If you're speaking about transgender students being able to
No,
participate, the
I'm just
answer is
saying,
no.
I guess maybe I'm looking for an answer that I already know, maybe, is that we're already following this practice.
Yes, we've been following this
So-
practice.
So
yes.
by accepting this board policy tonight, it doesn't change the practice that we're already following.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? I want to provide some additional context if nobody has any questions. So when this first came to Board Policy Committee a long time ago, that's when Heidi was on the Board Policy Committee, we sent this specific language out to our attorneys to have it vetted. In fact, we had it vetted by multiple attorneys to ensure that the language was required under Ed Code, because there was a little bit of consternation, quite frankly, on my part, because legislative acts typically have, as I mentioned, that level of immunity, but we got some clarification from the attorneys, and so this does reflect education code. Any other questions, comments, or anything on this, or do we have a motion on it?
Go ahead. I'll make a motion, unless you were going to ask a question. Are you asking a question? I'll make a motion that we, what am I making a motion for? Or that we're discussing it more, or that we approve?
Unless there's discussion, the motion is to approve.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve 0410
BP.
BP.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this motion before we, is that, oh, okay. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. None opposed. Okay. So now we're going to go to our next one, which is BP 1312.3, which, Rob, is yours as well.
Yes, sir.
Again, we'll start with the board. There's a significant amount here that has changes in red. Does anyone have any questions about those changes? Is there, go ahead.
Just to clarify, the same as 0410, we're already doing this. This is just putting it down on paper. We're already doing it because it's law.
Yes, we're already doing this because both of these policies are based on education code, and it's already there in law.
Okay.
This falls under that category you hear me complain about, that we have to pass policies that say we will follow state law versus just saying we're going to follow state law.
Yeah, Pete, just all this legislation in Ed Code actually impacts 9 different board policies. So it's the bumper stickers on many policies, all having saying the same thing.
All right. Any further questions, concern, or discussion? If not, does anyone have a motion on BP 1213.3? I'm not sure what I said, but that's my.
I'll make a motion to approve BP 1312.3.
All right,
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. That passes. Now we're going to go to 5131.2. There's, and we have both the AR and the BP here, so for consistency's sakes, we'll discuss both if we have any questions. There's a lot of red in these. In fact, the BP is all red. And then the AR is about 2/3, well, maybe a little bit more than 2/3 red. Who's our person on this one? Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Mel on these proposed changes to policy? BP 5131.2 and the corresponding AR.
Will you just give us some background, Mel, just brief on why these have come up and why there's so many, why is it all red? Why?
Well, a few of the paragraphs on page 2 that are actually crossed out are incorporated in the new version. It's just sometimes it's easier for us just to strike out everything and then cut and paste the whole entire new version in, as opposed to piecemealing it. And so if you're looking at page 2
of the BP,
no. Yes, sorry. BP, yep. the no individual or group shall, that paragraph, the next paragraph, the next paragraph, the next paragraph, all 4 of those paragraphs are incorporated in the revised version somehow, in some way. So it's not as new as it appears to be. It's just when we update these, sometimes it's just easier to strike it all out and add all the new stuff in. So a lot of it is incorporated within what's on page 1, if that makes sense.
And I would just add 2 pages of BP were sort of condensed into 1.
Yeah.
So it was a consolidation of sorts. Marla, it looked like you were going to ask a question or make a comment.
Yeah, I'm trying to decide if I make it a question or a comment. But so I'll make a question. One of the questions I had for you earlier today was whether we had jurisdiction over off-campus behavior. And just because it sounds, students do a lot away from campus we don't have control over. And you said that we do if behavior makes an impact in the environment on the school. So I guess I'm asking a question again, just so that everyone can hear it. And so I answered my question for you.
Yeah, and that's basically line 2 and 3 of the first paragraph.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. The most important part is line 3, where it says it may have an impact or create a hostile environment at school.
And so then maybe I'll ask another question. So in our conversation, I struggled with that last portion of the first paragraph that says, and to all acts of governing board and superintendent and the enacting policies and procedures that govern the district. And so part of what I'm wondering is why do we have to have that sentence there if we also have the uniform complaint approved, the same language in that board policy? And based on the shortened agenda of like why we have this up, it did not include, it was basically to update for the district families, as well as a definition of cyberbullying, I think. So is there a need to keep that sentence there? Because I have a problem with just how we define bullying in general.
I mean, obviously, it's your guys' choice. It is ed code, but it is repetitive.
Well, it's ed code to define the cyberbullying and what bullying is, but is it ed code to have that specific language? Because I know the bill 1078 made us add certain language to other portions.
So I believe this language was also language that was referred to the attorney. We referred the previous one and this one at the same time to the attorney.
That's why this one was pulled.
Yeah.
These were pulled, yeah.
And we got the same answer, that because it is, and that's what the ed code requires. So.
I think
and there are 2 different, one's discrimination, one's bullying.
I know.
Which are.
So I'm going to make comments because to streamline the conversation, because of the definition of something that makes an impact at school. I mean, all of our decisions make impacts at school. So I feel like the definition that's been written here is really loose to then say that now all acts are potentially bullying because we're making an impact at school. That's all. I struggle with that.
Well, doesn't ed code also link like anything that is like linked to something at school? I think it sounds to me like I just remember old language of linked, right? And maybe an impact, if there is a connection, right? Something that maybe happened at school or something that's happened outside of school but now is taking place within the school. If there is a link, something that's being elevated and negatively impacting the educational environment personally, then it's considered bullying.
Right.
So I think it's just really a word you choose.
It actually mirrors the harassment laws in regular employment settings. Something can happen off work at an outside location, but if it involves employees or relationships that are defined under harassment and they have anything tangential impacts to work, then it's considered harassment, even though it may not have occurred at work. So it's kind of where our state takes stuff. Leave it at that. Does the Ed Code define bullying further than this? I'm pretty sure this is almost directly out of Ed Code, isn't it not?
I would have to take a few minutes to actually look it up, but this is, we have a definition when we talk with students, and we talked about it today. If a student comes in and says, I'm being bullied, and again, bullying is pervasive. It's not one single act. And so we work with our students and our parents to understand what the actual definition of bullying is. And it's different than being mean. So you might be encountering mean behavior or rude, disrespectful behavior from students, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's bullying. So we try to help our students understand what bullying actually means. But yeah, if it creates, if something that happens on a Saturday night causes an impact to our campus or creates some type of hostile environment, or maybe that's the beginning stages of bullying that the student is now experiencing at school because of what happened on Saturday night, then it is absolutely our obligation to help that student through that.
And I would add, the AR does go into the definitions of the varying type of bullying. So, all right, does anyone want to either make changes or make a motion to approve? And I'd like to do these together if possible.
I would like to make a motion to approve both BP and AR 5131.2.
Okay, we have a motion for those two. Do we have a second?
I will second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Were you a aye?
I said aye.
Okay.
Sorry, I was very quiet.
Yes, that passes unanimously. So now we're on to our last one, I believe. Let me double check my agenda. Yes. 61, BP 6164.2, Guidance and Counseling Services. Again, we brought this because we knew it was a substantial amount of changes, and there's been discussion, as evidenced by our previous discussion. Is there anything in this item that board members would like to ask questions on or discuss?
And forgive me, I didn't prep you for this, but we currently charge for some of these services through Medi-Cal, correct? If there's 529s, do we not? We don't, okay, we don't do any billing.
We do have some reimbursements we can
Oh,
fill out
forgive
for.
me, I'm using the wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you, but I'm assuming you wouldn't know specifically which, it would just vary based on the student and what their needs were with the 529. I'm looking at items 1 through 11 for our school counselors, and I'm assuming it's really based on what the student need is. So it potentially could be any one of these 11 job services, correct? That you might reimburse for, okay.
It would really depend on, too, the student, if the student has an IEP or a 504, because our counselors work with those students as well. So that's
I'm
usually
saying
where
520. I'm thinking, I'm college.
That's
I'm thinking
usually-
college. Sorry, 529.
That's usually where
Forgive me, I'm like.
We build our college savings.
I know.
That's usually where the reimbursable, yeah.
I thought I was missing something. Sorry.
That's where the reimbursable services lie. But that also includes if a teacher's there, an administrator's there, like when I was a principal, I can get reimbursed services for just attending a meeting. So there's all these different ways. School nurses, so yeah, it's way beyond counselors.
All right, any other questions or concerns on this item?
Well, I have a lot of I have a lot of comments, but I don't have questions.
Okay, if anyone else have any questions before we get to comments?
And so this seemed very familiar to me because we recently redid the job description for school counselors. Is this, we're talking about that counseling in this, or, okay,
Correct.
not the wellness center counseling?
Yeah,
Or-
we
or a
don't
little bit of
call
both?
the wellness staff counselors.
I know, I'm never gonna,
That's it's confusing, I know. School counselors, and then we have our wellness staff who are their mental health therapists who do therapy. So our school counselors have 3 buckets of work. As a school counselor, I work with students on academics, on post-secondary options and choices, college, career, and on social emotional development. So those are the 3 buckets that our counselors spend their day working with countless students on. It could be any one of those 3 buckets, and it's a combination of all 3. On certain days, maybe they're more academics. On other days, maybe it's more students crying because their boyfriends broke up with them. But they handle all of that.
And so this policy, BP 6164.2, is relating to them, and it's been updated because why are we, what was the, it says new law, so I'm just guessing it was the new laws, we needed to update our policy to be in line with the laws.
AB 2508 updated Ed Code in August of 2022.
So if we approve this, does it change anything about what we're already doing in our practice within our district?
No.
Thanks. I think that's an important clarification, because when Ed Code changes, our practice changes virtually immediately, because we have to follow the law, and then we follow it up with changes to our policy. Concerns? Anything else? Comments? Concerns?
Comments. Well,
Yes.
and I'll just help you, Tiffany, for a moment. 49600, which is Ed Code, it lists these 11 items, almost verbatim. I didn't check it this round, but 6 months ago, it matched kind of verbatim. So I think that's where this comes from. And in that text, it also said urged versus, we had some speakers that talked about it's not a you must, it's we urge, or it's so persuasive. So my thoughts when I read through this was, and I took it from a lens of a parent and a community member, and I still had tons of questions, even though I know a lot. Because I just recognize it being so confusing. Like, you're asking questions because it's confusing between the wellness center counselors, the school counselors. There's, again, the semantics of using therapy versus counseling versus, I've heard, short-term coaching by the school counselors also. And as a parent, I feel like that's all the same, which basically means you're helping you're talking to my child and you're helping them. But in California Ed Code and law, how the school handles that with the parents and how the students access it, it's all different. And so I think what I'd like to suggest with this is I think we need to help our community understand the semantics better, which is why I was trying to clarify that other paragraph. So I know, Mel, you're working on a write-up for the wellness centers, kind of the how, the what, the how do you access, just all the things. I think we need something similar. Well, I haven't seen it yet, but I'm assuming something similar to the school counselors and what they offer, especially with the social emotional aspect, because there's so much, it seems like there's so much overlap, and where's the delineation between where they help the student and then when they pass it off. So I'd like that to be a future agenda item, I think, of just going over all of that. And then I'll just share my thoughts. I don't have a problem with anything that's in this. I just see confusion, and I think that's the problem. And that'd be my comments on that. And I don't know if it even serves us to put off approving this until we all understand better about what we're actually approving, because I bet we all don't understand everything. But again, because it's semantics, and what we define counseling is different from someone else. So those are my thoughts and my comments.
So I would discourage putting it off because I believe we have changes in law. We need to, one of the reasons we update our board policies is not just our practice, it's so that the public can be aware of what we're doing, what the current law is. So I do think we need to do this today. I don't disagree, though, that we need a lot of clarity on a lot of this stuff and a lot of education because there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of confusion. I know I had one child of mine who spent a lot of time talking to her counselor, and I never knew whether it was her academic counselor or college and career tech or whatever we call them, or wellness. I never really knew. I just knew that she was talking to people and getting some help here and there. So we would have to have the whole discussion about unpacking it to what it is. So, and it goes along with things that we've talked about before, is coming up with clear and consistent language that we use so that when we're talking, we know what each other are saying and staff understands what we're talking about. So I think we do have a long way to go in that area. And I would assume our superintendent is absorbing all this and knows that we need to get some more information. We'll figure out how to get it back to us. On the policy itself, though, any other concerns or questions before we get a motion on this policy?
I'm trying to, and I know that we already talked about this, so I apologize, because it was a couple meetings ago, Mel, but can you remind us why, or maybe Rob Hasty, maybe this is in the email that you sent out, why the language is urges to adopt if, like what you're saying, it's in reaction to a law. So why would the language be urges instead of required to? Does that make sense? Does that question make sense?
Yes.
And I know you sent out an email. No? It wasn't this one? Okay.
I saw an email. I remember an email similar to that too. Oh, it was on a different policy.
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
no,
Can I
no
make
public
a
comment.
guess? And I think we were thinking the same thing. If they required us to, I'm assuming this, anytime the state requires us to do something that costs a lot of money, I think there's some limits to that.
Not really. No.
Well, I thought there was, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, they give us unfunded mandates all the time.
No, okay, that would be a guess.
Okay, are we going to take action on this policy? To get things moving, I'll make a motion to approve this policy. Would anyone like to second it?
I'll second it.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Don't feel compelled, vote your conscience here. We're not forcing you to vote for anything. All in favor of this policy signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, it passes unanimously. But there was embedded in there some direction to staff to get some education and clarity, and not just to us, but to the public and our school sites and our students and everybody else. All right. Does anyone need a quick break?
I do.
Okay. All right. I could feel someone needing a break. It's 8:20 by my clock, so by my clock, we'll be back at 8:25. All right, we're going to reconvene. It's 8:25. Thanks for keeping that break nice and short. We still have a lot of ground to cover tonight. So hopefully we don't take...
Sorry, was that out loud?
Yes. I thought it was Marla. I was like...
I got a kink in my back right now.
You'll be able to do this in 20 minutes.
All right, so...
20 minutes reasonable? You'll be able to do this in 20 minutes?
The rest of this? No, not 20, but we'll get it done. Well, it depends how much you talk. That was the big you, meaning all of you, not just her. All right, so we are going to get to item 7.2. So, as I mentioned earlier in my comments, the board met over a couple of different meetings to discuss the evaluation of our superintendent, not his actual evaluation, but the process in which we would evaluate the superintendent, what the timeline would be. We sort of tested the timeline last year, what kind of tool we would use. Based on that, too, did a lot of work, a lot of research, brought that to us at our last meeting. Just for the public's knowledge, each board member then sent to whatever changes they thought might be appropriate. Two took the opportunity to try and meld all of those in, and they were significantly different, and some of them were, I don't know if they were actually opposing, but sort of different takes on the same sections. Put those together and then created what we have in front of us, which John and I reviewed with her just the other day. And now it's here in front of the board. So we have three things. One is our board policy, because our board policy is prescriptive on how we approach the evaluation. Assuming we make the other changes, the board policy would then codify what we have done or what we are going to do. And then the evaluation tool and the evaluation cycle will be adopted as exhibits within the board policy. So what we will do is whatever we end up with, whether it's this or some permutation of what we will have something that will be open and transparent and public on what the process is. And while obviously all boards in the future can change how they do things, they would at least have to have a public discussion in order to change the process. So hopefully this is a way to keep the public engaged in the conversation. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to two for any foundational comments that you have, and then we'll bring it back to the board, and we will take it chunk by chunk, but we'll give you the opportunity first.
I think you provided all the foundational comments. My only comment is to thank all of the trustees for engaging in the process, and I did receive everybody's feedback and comments, and try to meld all of your comments. As Pete said, some were very similar. There's one particular indicator that is common between four of the five of you. So I was able to capture your voice, and so thank you for your engagement. Pass it back to you, Pete.
All right, so let's do this first. Let's take the evaluation cycle first, since that's something we test drove for a year. That's Exhibit C. Does anyone have any comments or input on that? And are you comfortable with that being the basis and continuing going forward?
Yes. Did anything change from our meeting?
It's exactly, it hasn't changed since it was proposed originally a while back. So with that, let's break this up and do these individually so we can take chunks off. Did you have something you wanted to say?
Just a quick question. So that the quarterly check-in, that's just the board president, can we add, or forgive me, maybe I'm forgetting something else that might be somewhere else, but just how then you tell us, or do you tell us what that check-in looked like? Or the board president, anyway?
We didn't have a formal process for that.
So
it really was more to see if he needed any resources or anything to get to where he was going. If we want that update, we could have that update in closed session.
I'm just wondering a way so that the rest of the board knows it happened. Did he need anything? Just an update. and maybe it's John then taking the initiative, because I know you can't send a note out to us.
Well, I can if it's within the context of this.
Okay.
Because we can all since we're all responsible for the evaluation of the superintendent, we couldn't have a discussion about it.
Sure.
But I could make a report out as long as we didn't have a discussion.
I think in the procedure, whether it's here, just to say that a report out,
Okay.
an update to the rest of the board of what happens in that meeting would be great.
I would
But you said
suggest
in closed session, correct? Or is that,
it could be email or closed session. I think I've done, if you recall, like when we got prepared for the evaluation, I sent you out reports. It could be something like that. I think maybe what we could do is we could add to the language here, which flows into the board policy, so we'd have to change it there, is right now it says board president meets with the superintendent to discuss progress and status update on goals. And then what we could do is add and provides a report to the board.
Yeah.
I feel like we're missing a word here, but let me read this again. Progress. Okay. So we would add at the end of this and reports out to the board. Okay? So does anyone want to make a motion with that stated amendment in it?
I'd like to make a motion to add the statement that, and reports out to the board.
So approve with that
Yes.
addition. Okay. Do we have a
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. That will flow into the policy as well when we get there, so don't let me forget about that. All right, so now we have the tool, which the tool, just as a reminder, we've all seen before. Is there any discussion on the tool? Is there anything that a board member has a question about? Is there anything a board member might want to ask why or something was included or not included or anything like that? This is your opportunity to do so. Oh, wait. Is there anyone from the public who wants to speak on this? I don't have any cards. Okay. Now, sorry. I usually just go by the cards, but I want to make sure I always call. Not to point out Kevin, but sometimes he wants to talk and he doesn't have a card. So I just want to make sure that I acknowledge everybody. Okay. So based on that, fire away.
So, could you share with us what the changes were from what we talked about last week? Because we went through it quite extensively. Just highlight what the changes were.
Sure. So we'll go change by change in chronological order by page. So if you all can open Exhibit B, and I'll just go change by change. So on page 3, if you can scroll to page 3.
Okay.
Performance indicator 1.1 is new. That was not there previously from when we spoke at our last board meeting. And that reads, maintains an active and visible presence at school sites and in the community. And that was suggested by Pete. So we thought that, I think that's a good indicator. John thought that was a good indicator, so we included it. Next change in order is if you look at 1.3, what was not there previously that is now, and I'll emphasize when I read the indicator, create and implement plans to achieve the district's vision and goals. This is new, that reflect board expectations. And that was feedback from Carrie. So we thought it was smart to explicitly put in our board expectations as that's one of your priorities. Moving on, if you can turn to page 5. So that first descriptor sentence in that first paragraph after component 2, policy and governance title reads, the superintendent has a critical role in promoting effective governance, and this is the new part, and administration of the district. What was there previously was shared governance. And Pete, did you want to clarify? This is Pete's suggestion.
Yeah, I brought this up because, as you know, we've talked quite a bit over the last few years, but maybe the two of you haven't been here to experience that, is CSBA has this concept of shared governance, and they keep pushing that the superintendent is a part of the governance team. when in fact the superintendent is part of the leadership team, and there's a governance team, which is the 5 of us, and there's the administrative team, and together they make the leadership team. And it is helping to clarify what we've already clarified in other areas of our organization, is that the board governs and the superintendent administers. So the superintendent's role is to, also serves as the secretary of this board by law. So their job is to promote our effective governance, and then, of course, do that in the administration. So it was just to clarify, those are 2 separate roles, that we don't share those roles.
Okay, moving on. If you can turn to page 7. Let's see, actually, wouldn't be page 7 here.
Which component? You can just tell us which
Under
component.
component 3, instructional leadership.
Okay.
So that first sentence was suggested by Tiffany to take out great and put in meaningful. So I'll read it and I'll emphasize the word that Tiffany suggested. The superintendent must articulate a vision of what highly effective instruction looks like and must ensure that the system is aligned to engage every student in meaningful instruction every day instead of great. And we thought that was more powerful. The next change, if you look at performance indicator 3.3, it reads as, so this was not there previously at all, this entire indicator. Pete's, the first part of this indicator before the comma is Pete's suggestion. The second part is Marla's suggestion. So I melded both trustees' suggestions, and it reads as, ensures equal academic opportunities for all students, Marla's suggestions, preparing students for life, college, and career. And then we did originally, oh gosh, I just realized there's a 3.4 duplicate, so we'll fix it before.
Fix the numbering, okay.
Right. Originally, we also had 3.4 that read as, creates a personalized and motivating learning environment for students. We took that out because we just felt like all the other indicators captures that customization for student learning. So we didn't want to sound too redundant, especially since under this component, we have this many number of indicators.
And I also separately had made a mention, or a question to John, is it really the superintendent's job to be out there creating plans for each student? That really is something that we do within the district. So it's his job to ensure that gets done, but the way it was worded was a little bit clumsy.
Right. Okay, so let's move on to component 4. And so 4.1, the entire indicator was not previously there. This was suggested by Pete, and it reads as, provides opportunities for the community to engage and provide feedback outside of board meetings. And we thought that was important for our community to be able to do that. Let's move on to component 5. Component 5, if you would please take your eyes to performance indicator 5.3. And what's new here is the words after comma, infrastructure and asset management. And that was to capture your feedback, Tiffany, because you wanted to capture something along the lines of supporting our infrastructure. I think your exact words were something along the lines of buildings, care. So we thought we would use the words infrastructure and asset management, which captures, I think, the essence of what you were suggesting. So that now reads, makes sound fiscal decisions in line with the district's strategic goals, and establishes clear and transparent system of fiscal control and accountability, infrastructure, and asset management. Carrie made a suggestion that is not here at all, and let me speak to that, and then John can certainly chime in as well. Carrie, you made a suggestion to include as an additional indicator under this component for staff to, or for us to deliver upon organizational charts. And so John can speak to that.
Yeah, that one is actually already underway, and so it was a little specific, but we already know the want and need of that, so that's already underway. So.
Well, it really does fall under.
Put your mic on.
It really does fall under management of operational systems, but I appreciate that you guys are already working on that.
Okay.
Okay, if you could move along to component 6, and then if you would please turn your eyes to performance indicator 6.3. And Pete, what is new here is a suggestion from Pete to add for all students at the end of indicator 6.3. So now it reads as safeguards the values of democracy, access, and opportunity for all students. For all students is what's new. I think that was something that, Marla, you had talked about in some of your feedback comments as well, so that captures, I think, the essence of what you were trying to share. 6.4 was an issue for, I think I shared 4 of the 5 trustees. You all were wanting to change the language. One of the trustees said, let's just drop it all together. And with the feedback of Pete, Marla, Tiffany, Carrie, here's the new indicator as read. Actively promotes access and opportunity in all aspects of student academic endeavors. And so that should capture the 4 of your feedback as written with some wordsmithing there. Additionally, 3 of you made suggestions to the rubric, the 3rd bullet, underneath highly effective. You made some suggestions around taking out that works for equity and social justice as originally read. So now what you'll see is ensures access and opportunity for all students by raising rigor for all and simultaneously closing opportunity gaps, which really captures our intent and wish and will and skill to serve all of our kids. And then moving on, if you would please turn to page performance improvement plan if needed. That would be page 13.
Or Appendix B if the pages are off.
Yes, it's Appendix B. And so here, Pete provided some suggestions next to number 3. So specifically, Pete wanted to call out, here's what is changed. Previously, it read as the law requires. Pete actually suggested that we put in the board policy shall ensure, which then, of course, is just more pointed to our own local board policy. So now that's what it reads as, the board policy shall ensure. I'm going to keep reading. The performance improvement plan includes, previously it said to recommend. So includes is just a much more assertive word. Includes professional development opportunities and other actions to improve the rating of the superintendent on his or her next annual evaluation. Here's where the additional changes came from Pete. Pete wanted the board will work instead of previously it read we recommend. So it's just more assertive, more ownership on your behalf to supporting our superintendent. The board will work in collaboration with the superintendent to determine appropriate professional development opportunities and or other actions that should be taken. And that and or is also Pete's suggestion. And that concludes all of your comments and suggestions.
There was one other, and I don't remember exactly where it was in here, but there was a statement about the superintendent's evaluation being subject to open records requests, which is not the case in California. And I don't remember where it is, but we took it out because it is in other states, but it's not in our state. It's a confidential document in our state.
So that wasn't in there previously. So that wasn't.
Oh, it wasn't in this document?
That was.
Oh,
yeah.
man.
That was, I think, our discussion previously
Okay.
before the special board meeting when I was
Okay. I'm
doing
confused. Never
research.
mind.
Yep.
All right, so those are the changes and how they came to fruition. Any comments, concerns?
I do.
Go ahead, fire away, turn your mic on.
Okay, so I have 3. On 4.1, provides under the indicator of communication and community relations. So it was added in, provides opportunities for the community to engage and provide feedback outside of board meetings. What did you envision there when you added that, when you suggested that.
My feeling is that the superintendent is out in the community in a number of areas. The administration sends out surveys, they do other things. The board meeting should not be the only place where the community could give feedback. Oftentimes, there's a ton of work that has been done by the administration by the time it gets to the board, and there should be opportunities for meaningful feedback along the way, and this is communicating. It's your job to seek community input as you go forward. That was the
So,
thought.
for instance, the LCAP committee or the SILT meetings or the surveys, the LCAP survey, those are the kinds of things you're talking about?
Yes, and-
Okay,
and
okay.
perhaps others in the future, but it's just more definitive. Don't just do it because we've done it. The board wants you to do this.
Okay. And then on 5.3, I think that was me, I think my thought there was that this, and I'm not sure if this does reflect that or not, but my thought was that the superintendent needs to be actively planning the, okay, help me with words, it's getting late.
Deferred infrastructure maintenance.
Yeah, the infrastructure, our capital resources, having an active plan. So yes, I don't even remember what I wrote to on that, but is that what comes across when you guys read it?
I think it reads really well.
That you understood what that meant? Okay, okay.
understand that. I think it is extremely complete, and I love the wording of that.
Okay.
And I
Great
think,
suggestion.
I think it's important to realize there are some things that are under the superintendent's control and other things that aren't. So we as a board own the budget, the capital improvement plan, the capital budget, so he can only do what we have approved. So essentially, we're saying he's accountable for whatever, we can't give him $10 million to do improvements and him not spend it. You know, it's his job to inform us on what needs to be done. It's our job to resource him. So it didn't put all of it, because if I don't know what yours said, but if it said, I don't think it'd be appropriate to say the superintendent shall ensure that all buildings are up to code, because if we don't give him the money, he can't do that. So it has to be part of a plan. So this was trying, when I read this, it's like, okay, it's his job to have the fiscal control and the accountability. He should be able to tell us what we need, what resources he needs, and assuming we do it, he needs to be accountable to it.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Okay, what else?
Oh, do you have something about that?
I'm just going to share one more thing. As I look at Tiffany's comments, Tiffany, I forgot to share this piece as well. On this, under the same component, you had asked for some accountability, kind of along the lines of what Pete just said, some accountability for the well-being of our staff, including training, teaching environment, support, and salary. If you look back to component 3, we do have specific call out to language around building a culture of trust, collaboration, which speaks to that learning environment, teaching environment that you speak of. But with regards to salary, I think that is the responsibility of the board. So, as you know, our negotiations team acts upon your direction with regard to salary and negotiations.
Okay, thank you. And then my last comment was on 6.4.
Let me get there here.
Under the professionalism and ethics. I guess my only comment was, it seems like to me that fits more under instructional leadership than professionalism and ethics.
Which one, 6.4?
6.4 actively promotes access and opportunity in all aspects of student academic endeavors. I just don't quite see how that fits within professionalism and ethics, where that indicator and its companion piece and the highly effective, to me, just seem to go under instructional leadership, but
I think
just
there
was
is
bringing
the
that up.
instructional part, but I can really see that being ethics, because really ensuring the success of all of our students is across the board in so many avenues that has nothing to do with instruction, right? We have our culture of care, our counseling, we have our sports, we have our or what do we call them? Our extracurricular.
Co-curricular.
Right. So there's just so many other functions, and then just, plays and productions and parents coming in. And I think there's an ethical component to that, so I kind of like it there.
All right. Any others?
Nope.
I don't remember if I asked you.
No, I don't have anything.
Okay. Anything? Anything?
Nope. We have to make a motion.
All right, then go for it.
I will love to make an emotion to approve this exhibit tool for our superintendent evaluation.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Nobody opposed, that passes unanimously. Now we'll go to Exhibit A, which is the actual revised policy 2140. And when I spoke to Tu before she did this, I essentially said, go through the tool and our chart of process and make sure that we institutionalize what we're going to be doing without replicating the actual form. And so what we have here is hang on here. We do have one spot that is missing, and that's the one we just amended.
The quarterly check-in.
The quarterly check-in. So in between mid-year review and annual review on page 1, we want to take the language that we just approved in the chart and just insert that there. Anyone have a problem with that? Okay. Other than that, most of what we have is reciting what's in the tools and the process. Is there anything that anyone would like to address? I am not seeing any.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'd like to address too, and just thank you so much for the amount of work that went into this. I think it's a fantastic professional document that will really benefit our district for years to come. So thank you so much.
yeah, I think, well, let's approve it first.
I'll make a motion to approve the policy.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously. I think we now have probably one of the most comprehensive and objective performance evaluation processes and templates, and I think that's going to serve our district and our students and our families and our community very well. I was so pleasantly surprised when we first start talking about this and we reached out to Tu, and she says, oh, I'm doing research on that right now. And she had just had all of this at her fingertips. But more than that, she was able to take a lot of the things that she's discussed with us previously and synthesize them together in a document that I feel that I personally and we generally as a board can take ownership of. So I want to echo the thanks, because I know it's real easy for us to say go do, but there's a lot of time spent doing, and it's important that we recognize that. Anything else on this item? All right.
Can I ask, so we're just doing that one in 3 categories, not as a whole?
Well, we did the motions all individually, yeah. Sorry, making it easier for us makes it harder on you.
That's okay. Got it.
All right. All right, 7.3, we do this fairly regularly, so we don't need a detailed explanation, especially given the time. Is there anything you'd like to add to what is in our documents?
Just need you guys to approve the Declaration of Need, also known as the DON, so that we can work with the California Commission on Teaching Credentialing if we have teacher interns, or we need emergency permits for EL authorization, or some short-term permits for teachers that come up during the year. We've hired 40 teachers at this point. I do know that we have the need for some of these. So we're just being proactive and asking for the board's support.
All right, any questions, concerns, or would someone like to make a motion?
I will make a motion to approve.
We have a motion, do we have a
I'll
second?
second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That passes unanimously. All right, 7.4, the same caveat. We have it in front of us. Is there anything you need to add?
Just had some questions earlier. The funding source has increased for our Roseville Adult School program, and so Principal Voss is able to provide her staff with a increase, and the salary schedule reflects that increase.
And just to be clear, these funds come from outside and go to this program. There's no impact to our general fund, so to speak. Any questions, concerns, or do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously. So now we have our LCAP. As you know, we had our public hearing, what was that, 2 weeks ago on the LCAP, and we had a pretty detailed presentation. But I'm going to turn it to two. I think you're leading this, right?
Yes.
All right.
So
Take it away.
This is our action item by you. I just wanted to let you know that per Education Code, we did offer the opportunity for our community to submit questions or comments by which staff would have had to respond to and then post it publicly. And we've not received any questions or comments. So I just wanted to report that out to you. But you've heard our presentation from 2 weeks ago, and so tonight it's in front of you for approval, and staff recommends approval.
Does anyone have any questions?
I do have one question. Where did I find this, the LEP, or no, it's Local Performance Indicator Self-Reflection? Where did I download this from?
You're probably
is
looking at
8.1.
8.1.
Oh, okay, we're not there yet. Okay, never mind.
Okay, so on the LCAP,
I'll make a motion to approve the local control accountability plan.
all right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I will second.
Do we have any discussion on this motion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Congratulations for all that other hard work you've been doing. All right.
Officially go home now, retire.
Okay, we're out.
All right, we're going to move into our budget. Nice short documents, but
Yep. Nice and short. We went over it a little bit more last time. The only major, or the only significant change we had was an update to our enrollment with additional approximately 92 students based on the enrollment that's been coming in and the actual registrations. And so that's being reflected in the budget. Everything else is pretty similar to what you saw last time. So staff recommends approval of our budget.
all right. And just remember, there are changing circumstances, so we'll likely see, what is it, 45 days revision, something like that?
We probably won't see a 45-day revision. That's if the state had anything that we weren't expecting, we would see that. So I don't anticipate a 45-day revision, but we will have our first interim budget update, which will be later this year.
You're not saying that you can predict the actions of our legislature and there'll be no
I'm saying I can
shenanigans.
predict him this time.
All right. Any questions for Joe? Concerns? Is there a motion?
I was just gonna make a motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a
I'll
second?
second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? I get choked up when we spend a lot of money. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Now, we're going to get to the local indicators. This is an informational item. Two is going to let us know what this information is. And then
Yeah.
we'll go from
So thank you, Jen. Jen has led us in the reflection piece. So our LCAP local performance indicator is an annual obligation that every single school district or local educational agency must conduct. It's really reflecting upon your local performance indicators that we reflect together as a team based upon all of our work, artifacts, parent survey results, and then we do submit it to CDE, and it is part of their accountability system. And Jen, did you have anything you wanted to add with regards to our reflections? I think generally, I'll just say that if you were to. Oh. Generally, I'll just.
You could talk if you want.
But you have to sing.
I think. Oh, well, that is Tim. She's going to do it.
Is this your last?
Is this going to be a High School Musical moment? That'd be really fun.
Yes, and the board will get up and dance. Well, 4 of the 5.
Whenever we approve budgets, we should have a dance.
No. All right, so I believe Carrie might have had a question on this. Carrie?
I don't have a specific question. I guess just like, I wanted to know a little bit more about the process in terms of the reflection. I hadn't seen this document before. And I think the clarity I was looking for here is, I mean, there's a lot of areas. How are we scoring? So the 4s, the 3s, the 2s, the 1s, we've got some areas with 5s. I'm just wondering how we're really gauging that. I mean, it's probably can be subjective, and I'm sure there's a lot of analysis. So I don't want to take up too much time there, but just maybe in a nutshell.
So this is done, again, with Ed Services staff. I should have said this earlier. These are the part of the 8 state priorities, as you will recall, that we made mention of when we did our public hearing presentation. And so let's just go to, if you're looking at the exhibit, go to page 6, for example. And it does ask an LEA to reflect upon, for this particular piece, our progress in providing professional learning for teaching to recently adopted academic standards and/or curriculum frameworks identified below. And you'll see the rating scale that we should thoughtfully contemplate as a team, with 1 being lowest, exploration research phase, all the way to 5 with full implementation and sustainability. And then the state lists for us those 5 standards around ELA Common Core State Standards for language arts, ELD aligned to ELA standards, mathematics, Common Core State Standards for mathematics, next generation science standards, history, social science. And of course, these all have frameworks with them as adopted by the State Board of Education. So you'll see our varied reflective rating of ourselves. We did give ourselves a 4 for full implementation for ELA Common Core State Standards for ELA, because thanks to you all, we just adopted a Common Core state-aligned English language arts adoption in the fall. With regards to ELD aligned to ELA standards, we rated ourselves as still initially implementing. The reason why we were really humble about this is because we recognize we have a growing EL population, that we could do a better job with not just updating our English language arts repertoire in the classroom, but probably also we needed to update our vision, our framework that we'd like to bring forward in front of you. And so those were some of the conversations we had with each other as Ed Services team.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, there's no action on this one. It's simply a report out. Anything else to report, or are you good there? We got it? All right. Staff comments. Thank you. Pending agenda items, you have,
Yeah, I would, sorry. For the pending agenda items, I just want to clarify, we had that discussion about education on wellness and then the school counselors. I'd like that to be an agenda item when, Mel has it all together. And maybe you and John can talk, because I know your wellness will be put together sooner, so maybe it's 2 separate, I'm not sure.
okay. And then we also have to add in the enrollment stuff that we talked about. I know we probably haven't found a spot for that yet, but that will get added once we do.
At some point, too, I want to make sure that we come back to the long-term capital improvements plan. I don't know if we want to peg a date for it, or if you'll just let us know when you're sometime before the end of the year.
Yeah, no, it's a big summer project.
Sorry. All right. Does anyone want to make a motion for us to go home and go to sleep? It's almost my bedtime in 20
I would like to make a motion that we adjourn.
All right, second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you all.